Hello and welcome back to another Shook in Time review. Now if you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know we've had a real run of watches sitting around that 40mm mark recently. This is now my Goldilocks size, but that got me thinking, does this mean a large diameter watch on my 7.5-inch wrist is off limits? Or is there still room for something like this Seastar 2000 in my collection? And with Tissot refreshing the Seastar 2000, I thought it was worth giving this one a go, to see whether a big diameter watch like this still feels wearable to me, or have I just retreated into that sub 40mm zone for good. And another angle to this review is to remind myself and you guys how this stacks up against its smaller brother, the Seastar 1000 in 40mm. This was a watch I reviewed back in February this year, and it was a peach of a thing. It felt well made, had some really nice details, a genuinely usable size, and priced at £685 in the UK. It really hit that affordable sweet spot. Well, let's dive in and take a closer look, because all is not quite what it seems with this watch, and I think Tissot might have made this watch more wearable than the specs would have us believe. Now before we continue, and if you're new here, then welcome, and if you enjoy the content, hit subscribe and like this video. It helps the algorithm push this out to more watch nerds like you. Here's the thing though, the majority of people watching this aren't actually subscribed, so hitting that button puts you in the front seat for new content the moment it drops. And if you're on Instagram, come and follow me over there as well. I'll leave a link down below. Your support really helps, so thank you. And with that out of the way, let's start the deep dive by taking a look at the specifications of this watch. Let's start by talking about the size of this Seastar, because that's going to be a key topic of conversation in this video. On paper, we're looking at a 44mm case diameter, 15.3mm case thickness, with a 22mm lug width. Now here's where it gets interesting, and where I think Tissot have pulled a bit of a sleight of hand. Sure, the diameter is 44mm, but that's not the only story in town. This Seastar has a genuinely compact lug-to-lug of 49.6mm for a watch this size. So even with the thickness and the diameter, it doesn't feel like a manhole cover on my 7.5-inch wrist. To put that into context, I've lined it up alongside the IWC Pilot Chrono in 41mm and the Seiko SPB 317, the Slim Turtle, also in 41mm. And what you can see is that despite being 3mm wider in diameter, the Tissot actually has a smaller lug-to-lug than the IWC, and that matters because when you're looking at top-down placement on the wrist, lug-to-lug is doing a lot of the work. Then the Seiko adds another angle to this comparison. It's 41mm, same as the IWC, but it looks and sits noticeably smaller than both of them, and that's really the point I'm trying to make here. Case diameter is not the only thing that determines how big a watch looks or feels on your wrist. It's important to consider all the measurements before deciding whether a watch is the right fit for you, because this is often something that gets missed when picking the next watch to buy. Moving on, let's quickly run through the numbers on this one. You're looking at a 600-meter professional dive watch with a genuinely usable 80-hour power reserve, all for under £1,000, and that's before any discounts. And remember, this isn't some micro brand offering, this is a heritage brand that literally tells you how far back that heritage goes, right there on the dial. Now before we get further into the review, I want to give a shout out to my partner for this video, Watcho Jewelers. They've been with me on this journey since the very beginning, and they stock a genuinely wide range of brands at fantastic prices, backed up by amazing customer service. If you like the look of this Seastar 2000, they carry it in more than just this black PVD colorway. There's a grey gradient, a dark blue gradient, and a light blue gradient too. If I'm honest, the dark blue gradient was actually my first choice for this review, but availability meant I ended up going with the black PVD instead. There's also an orange dial version, which just isn't for me, but that's purely a taste thing, so don't let me put you off it. And the good news is that the usual Shooked discount is on. Use the code and you'll get up to 12% off the Seastar 2000 and the Seastar 1000 range as well. So give Watcho a look, because they really are a watch buyer's dream. Now let's talk about the dial, because this is where I have a bit of a falling out with the Seastar. Let's start with what I like. I really like the subtle sunburst effect and the wave pattern design. We're seeing that wave pattern on a lot of watches these days, but I think Tissot have executed it really well here. One small niggle for me is the word professional. That second line of text at 6 o'clock just feels unnecessarily long. But when you take a step back and look at the dial as a whole, maybe you can see why Tissot did it that way. They needed to fill the empty space. The bigger niggle though is this: the dial is now considerably bigger than the 40mm Seastar 1000, but Tissot seem to be using the same size markers and the same hand stack as the smaller watch. To my eyes at least, it just feels out of proportion. A bit like seeing a bodybuilder with skinny legs. Something just feels wrong. I think it needed larger, more proportioned markers, along with a seconds hand that doesn't finish in a full stop for a pip. That tiny little lollipop just looks out of place on a dial this big, like it belongs on a 36mm watch. So in summary, this is where the Seastar 2000 loses points. It's not the case size or thickness, it's what they haven't done on the dial. Now, before the inevitable criticism of me being a Seiko fanboy starts, I just want to point out that I own two Tissots and think the brand is fantastic. The Viso Date is still my favorite dress watch of 2026, and the PRX Chrono represents my ultimate U-turn. So if you're bored, feel free to give those reviews a look on my channel. So to conclude on the dial, I have to give it a solid kick in the nuts. But it is what it is, I guess. Let's take a quick look at the case finish and rubber straps supplied with this watch, because there's not a huge amount to say here, but it's worth covering. The case is made from 316L stainless steel with a black PVD coating that gives it that tactical look. I wasn't sure about the black look in all honesty, but spending time with this watch has convinced me this is something I like. The tropic-style rubber strap is soft, comfortable on the wrist, and uses a quick release system, so swapping it out for one of the many strap options available from Tissot is super easy. The Tissot supplied strap is a step up on the cheaper FKM tropical straps you can get on Amazon or eBay. It's got a lovely finish to it and the keepers feel like they would last. Now let's move on to the bezel, which is an important feature for this professional dive watch. The Seastar 2000 gets a unidirectional ceramic bezel, and that's a genuine upgrade over the Seastar 1000, which uses a mineral glass bezel insert instead. So straight away, that's one reason to think about the bigger watch. As for the action itself, it's precise and you get a really nice audible click on every rotation. This isn't a bezel that's going to get knocked out of position easily if you're actually going to use it for its intended purpose. Does it have the best bezel feel in its price range? Probably not, but it's functional and will get the job done. Let's talk about Lume Performance, because this is where Tissot dive watches seem to excel in my experience. The Super Luminova application here is strong and the glow is genuinely bright. Whether you're in low light or total darkness, this Seastar holds up. For a desk diver like me, the Lume Performance is outstanding, and reading the time in the middle of the night is easy. Now just imagine if they'd gone with bigger markers on this dial. That glow would have been even more spectacular. Alright folks, it's final thoughts time. And let's talk about who this watch is actually meant for. It's for people with larger wrists, above about 7 inches, who actually like wearing a chunky watch. It's for the sort of person who thinks desk diving is for wimps, and who genuinely spends time in open water. And apparently it's for anyone who thinks a 40mm dive watch is, how do I put this, a bit girly. Now you're probably thinking that's a pretty small minority to design a watch around, and you might be right, but you have to believe Tissot know a lot more about this market than I do, because they absolutely do. So would I buy this watch? The answer is no. In fact, for my needs, the Seastar 1000 looks even more appealing if you're after a Tissot dive watch. The spec isn't quite as high, but it's cheaper, and honestly, it's perfect for a keyboard worker like me. And which color would I go for in this range? I'd go with the blue and black. It's just such a nice looking thing, and it would help me get over my issue with the markers being too small for the dial. Finally, remember, case diameter isn't the only thing to think about when you're sizing a watch for your wrist. Lug-to-lug is one of the most important measurements out there, so don't sleep on it. And before you go, if you enjoyed this one, get subscribed and drop a like. It genuinely helps this channel grow. And come find me on Instagram too, the link's down below. So that's a wrap for another week, and until next time, keep on ticking.